If this isn't the #1 question I get asked in every closing, it's got to be really close. And that is, when is the deed recorded? I'm Tiffany Weber, and I am a real estate lawyer in Mooresville, North Carolina at Thomas & Weber. Subscribe to the channel so you can get more information just like this about the real estate closing process. There are a lot of things that need to happen before the deed can be recorded. And sometimes my paralegals get calls from sellers that say, no, you're not allowed to record this deed until I get paid. Well, actually the opposite is true. Sellers can't get paid, nobody can get paid until the deed is recorded. And there's a lot of steps that have to happen before we can actually get the deed recorded at the Register of Deeds. The first thing is the parties have to sign all of the necessary documents. So if the buyer's getting a loan, the loan paperwork has to be signed, the seller's gotta sign the deed, and there are other documents that are required under the contract. And then also, all of the parties' obligations under the contract have to be fulfilled. So whenever you first go under contract to buy a property, there's a long list of seller obligations, and then there's a list of buyer obligations. Those things all have to be satisfied. Usually they are before the parties even get to the settlement to sign the paperwork. Another thing that has to happen is that the parties have to sign the final settlement statement. So sometimes when you have lenders involved, or if there are invoices that need to be paid that haven't been disclosed to the closing attorney until last minute, the settlement statement can be changing up until it's time to close. So if there have been any changes to the settlement statement, the final version has to be executed by both parties before the deed can be recorded. Also, all the money necessary to fund the loan, to be able to pay the seller the full purchase price and pay everyone that gets paid on the closing statement, all of that money has to be in the lawyer's trust account before the deed can be recorded. If not, the deed can't record. So buyers, if you haven't sent your money, your deed isn't getting recorded. The lender hasn't sent the money, the deed isn't getting recorded. So that's very critical. And then the very last thing that happens before the deed is recorded is the title update. So everyone's really antsy to get the deed recorded because that's when the seller gets paid, that's when the realtor gets paid, and that's when the buyer actually owns the house. But all of the parties either don't know about or forget about this really important step that has to happen first. So the title update is the process where someone from the closing attorney's office goes to the county, whether that's electronically or in person, and looks at the important records related to title to make sure there are no defects that have popped up between the time the title was searched and the time of closing. So that means if the seller has perhaps had some liens put on the property or had a judgment against them in the time from when the title search was completed to when the title update is done, that means that's gonna have to be resolved before the deed is recorded. Another thing that we talk about with deed recording, because people are very antsy to get it done, is they say, well, why don't you just e-record it? That way it'll be instant. That is not true. In North Carolina, the e-recording process, while very efficient, it is not necessarily faster than going in person depending on your county. Because the e-recording process is you submit the recorded documents and they end up in a line just like you would stand in a line in person. So just because you upload the documents doesn't mean they'll be accepted, doesn't mean they'll be recorded. So you could be waiting 2 hours to get something e-recorded just like you would be waiting in line in person. So at our office, we always judge what's gonna be fastest. So if e-recording is gonna take 6 hours because that county is very busy, then we're gonna try to get someone to go in person to do that more efficiently. Another thing people wonder is, how will I know that the deed has been recorded? Well, for one, in our office, we provide notification to the parties that the deed has been recorded. But if you are savvy or you just really like looking up public records, then you can go to the County Register of Deeds website in the county where your property is located and search for the names of the parties. Whenever the deed has been recorded, there will be, in most counties, a line item showing the grantor, the grantee. So you'll get the notification from the closing attorney's office, maybe from your realtor, but if you don't want to wait for that notification and you just like hitting refresh on the internet, then you can certainly look at the county's Register of Deeds website. So that's a little bit more about deed recording, when the deed gets recorded, what has to happen first. It's the most exciting part of the process because that's when the buyer really owns the house and that's when everybody else gets paid. So I hope that answered your question, and make sure to go watch the rest of the videos on our channel so you can learn more about the closing process.